Good afternoon, Ralf. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Could we start with some team news, please? There were quite a few, of course, who were out in your previous game against Brentford. So, Sancho, will he be available for selection tomorrow?
He didn't train yesterday because he still asked us to be able to not train since he attended that funeral on Wednesday. And it still affected him quite a lot. He will be expected back to training this afternoon at 3 o'clock. But right now it's not sure if he will be available for the game tomorrow because, as I said, it was an important member of the family, somebody who was very close to him in all his life. And therefore I have to wait and see, speak to him during training, after training, and then take the decision if he will be available for tomorrow.
Simon Peach.
In regards to the other night, we just heard that Victor Lindelof's house was broken into. His family were at home. How is he and how are you supporting the family as a club?
Yeah, I spoke with him at length on our flight back home from London, and also this morning we spoke for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. He told me what had actually happened, and this was really a traumatic event, especially for his wife and even the 3-year-old son. He said to me that he right now needs to stay at home. He doesn't want to leave his wife and his family on their own, which I can fully understand, being a father of two children myself. We agreed that he will not be training today and also not be on duty tomorrow for the game.
There's been a lot of talk this week about Jesse Lingard's future. There's also obviously lots of speculation linking Manchester United with all manner of players. What is the latest on Jesse? And in an ideal world, I know January isn't always the easiest market. Would you like to bring in a January signing?
Yeah, with regard to Jesse, it's the same as with quite a few other players. He's a really good player. I can see that in every training session. And for me, it's normal that other clubs, like for example Newcastle, show interest in him. But I'm not the one who is dealing with that. So I know that there might be some interest from other clubs, but if you ask me now what will happen in the next 10 days until the closure of the window, I cannot answer that question, I'm afraid.
Hello, Ralf. Can I ask you about Diogo Dalot? He's not somebody who was playing so much before you came. He's become far more regular. What's he doing right to stay in your team? In which areas is he impressing you and where does he need to improve?
I mean, offensively, he has a lot of assets. He did well. He's somebody who can deliver crosses from the wing. He is also able to take on players in one-on-one situations. The areas where he can still improve and where there is still space for improvement is obviously in his defensive work. He's not that much of a defensive fullback, but more of an offensive fullback. But this is normal. There are quite a few other fullbacks in other clubs where it's the same. Quite a few of those fullbacks formerly played as right or left wingers. And therefore, so far with the development since I'm here with Diogo, the same with Alex Telles, I'm happy. They get more game time right now because Luke is injured and Aaron is still ill. So I'm happy to have those two players available. And as I said, offensively, both of them have their assets and their strengths, but defensively, there is still some space for improvement.
Ben Ransom.
Hi, Ralf. Just going back to Jesse, is it the case that he's simply just worth more to you as a player in the squad should you need to call on him because of illness or injury, as opposed to any potential fee, permanent or loan, you might be able to get this month?
Well, as I said, it's also all the question, what does the player want? What kind of other options does he really have? Does he see a chance to get more game time there? Those are all questions that I cannot answer for him or for other players. This is something that has to be done by the players and their agents themselves. What I can say, he's a very good player, a technical player, and of course he can play in many Premier League clubs on a regular basis. Here at Manchester United, it's not so easy because we have other players who can also play on that position. And we cannot change from one game to the other on 5 or 6 positions. And therefore, as I said, for him, the question is, I know that his contract is expiring in the summer. The question is, what does he want to do? Does he want to get more game time from now on? Then I think it's quite legitimate to speak and think about other options. But I wouldn't be unhappy if he stayed until the rest of the season, because I know that he is a player who can always play, even if we need to play him from the start. I know what kind of level I will get from him, and that's how I would describe the situation.
Michael Gregg.
Hi, Ralf. Ralf, if Man United are going to wait until the summer for transfers, how big of a building process is that going to be, not knowing whether you're going to be the interim manager next season or it's going to be somebody else?
Well, my full focus, as I have indicated earlier on, is to win games with this team. In order to win games, we need to develop as a team. We need to improve in some areas. I think we've done so in the last couple of weeks, but there is still more space for that in vast areas of our game. And this is where my focus is. And I'm not that much dealing with other things that might happen in 3 or 4 or 5 months. This is an issue that is not on the top of my list. On top of my list is how can we win the game against West Ham. And after the international break, the upcoming games in the Cup against Middlesbrough, Burnley, playing Southampton at home, playing Brighton at home, this is where my focus is.
Carl Anker.
Good afternoon, Ralf. I'd like to talk to you about your comments you made about moving to 3 at the back. You said a comment about how you wish you had done it during the Aston Villa game, and then you did implement that during the Brentford game. How are you finding the adaptation process during games and knowing when to change the 3 at the back, as it were, and how to sort of bring your methods towards this new Manchester United team?
Well, in a way, in football, it's a little bit like chess. Things can change so quickly during the game. And even having watched last night's semi-final in the Carabao Cup, you could see that things can change from 1 minute to the other. In some parts of the game, you are dominating the game, pinning the other team back into their half and almost into their box. And all of a sudden, it can be different. And therefore, it's also important to be able to react on what the game needs now, what the team needs. And in fact, we had exactly the same constellation at Brentford that we had at Villa. 70 minutes played, 2-0 up against a team that will not give up. I mean, in the Premier League, even after being 3-0 down, teams do tend to not just give up the game. And therefore, for me, it was logical to with the experience, the negative experience we had at Villa Park, to do it different this time. And therefore, for me, it was very clear that we bring on Harry and then defend this 2-0 result. And in the end, we even scored the 3rd one on a counter-attack. And from then on, it was clear that we are going to win the game.
This method of experience and constellation, are we to understand that if this constellation appeared again, you'd go for the same method of 3 at the back?
Yes, I think all teams in football should be able to play different formations. And with our centre-back constellation, we should always be able to play with a back 3. Even under Ole, the team played at times in the Champions League against Atalanta or in the Premier League away at Tottenham with a back 3. And why shouldn't we be able to play with a back 3 with the kind of quality centre backs that we have, and the same with our fullbacks. We spoke earlier on about Diogo and about Alex Telles. They are both offensively strong, so they would be even more valuable as wing backs. So for me, it could also happen during the game, but I would also not exclude that at times in the season we will also be able to play with a back 3. But in order to do that, we also need some training time, and this could, for example, happen in the week after the international break, that we can train like that. But obviously, it's also depending on the players that are being available.
We've got last question for Simon Stone.
Hi, Ralf. Obviously, the defensive substitution meant that Ronaldo went off, and he reacted the way that he did. I don't know if you've managed to speak to him again since then. And I wonder how you deal with the situation, because he is such a big name. Attracts such attention, and any kind of displeasure gets reported on and magnified. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think we shouldn't make too much of a fuss out of it. And I can only speak for myself and my coaching staff. I explained that to him even during the game when we had that little conversation after we had scored the third goal. And in fact, I told him the same what I just said in our press conference. The job of a football manager is to help teams winning games. And for me, it was clear after the experience that we made at Villa Park that this time we have to do things better. And we did it better. And the only question was, whom do we take off? Of course, Cristiano, as a prolific goal scorer, as a player who always wants to play and score goals. He was also asking, why me? Why didn't you take off one of the younger players? But the answer came 5 minutes later when one of the younger players scored the third goal. Maybe Cristiano could have also scored that goal, but football is not always maybe. It's about taking a decision in the right moment. Until then, we were 2-0 up. Cristiano gave the assist to the second goal when he chested the ball to Bruno. This was tactically, by the way, one of the best situations we had in game, that our central striker came towards the ball, and at the same time Bruno, as one of our eights, sprinting vertical. This was the reason why in the end we were able to create an easy tap-in goal for Mason. But again, he hasn't been substituted, I believe, for the first time in his career. I think there have been a few other substitutions, as far as I know, even under Sir Alec. And that a player like Cristiano doesn't like to be substituted, for me, is pretty normal. So his reaction was emotional. But for me, this is not a problem at all. I've been managing other players, maybe not with quite the big name as Cristiano, but I also had players like Krasimir Balakov, like Jan-Klaas Huntelaar, or like Raúl at Schalke, or Ebbe Sand. So I know how offensive players behave and react to this sort of substitution. But again, it's about our team. It's about getting points. We are in a position where every single game is of great importance, and where we need to make sure that we get the maximum amount of points out of it. And this is the most important part. The team is more important than, in that case, no matter who it is, if it's Cristiano or Edison or Bruno or any other player. Bruno has also been substituted and was not happy with that in the last couple of weeks. It's about what is best, what is in the best interest of the team and the club.